Alright, so the Fluval Evo 13.5 gallon, my first saltwater reef aquarium. So I'm just going to be talking about the kind of the past on this tank and what I'm planning on doing with it at the moment. So let's jump right in. So this was my first saltwater aquarium. I got this when I was, well, for Christmas 2018, I think. So I was only just 12 when I started this, and I kept it for a year, and then I decided to shut it down because it was getting a little bit too easy. I thought I might just step it up just a little bit, get stuff a little bit harder. So now I've got larger reef tanks. So yeah, so it's still got the sand in it and stuff from it still needs to be cleaned out and put into storage. That's what I'm going to be doing it with it, just keeping it in storage if I want to use it in the future for a reef tank or some kind of reservoir or anything I could use it for. It's not really worth anything. I could probably get like 60 quid for it, but it's not really worth it. I'd rather just keep it as a spare tank. And in here I was keeping two Ocellaris clownfish and one, well, I did start off with keeping a fire goby, but it hid quite a lot in this tank, and it was a little, I mean the tank's slightly too small for that kind of fish. So I got rid of that, and I got a damsel, I got a sapphire damsel as well, which is the most peaceful damsel that you can actually get. All of them, apart from the sapphire damsel and the azure or regal damsel, are the most, well, the only slightly peaceful damsels. All the other ones are really aggressive, so it's the only kind of option I could go for. Really small fish, never really bothered any of the others. And this is a stock light. This is a 15 watt, just a normal strip bar. It's got like, it's mainly dominated by white LEDs, but it's got a few blues in there. So it can grow coral, it can grow soft coral. It grew that really well, and grew LPS really well. SPS, yeah, it did do a lot of SPS. It grew red digitata, red Monty, green elkhorn, pink hystrix, and blue digi, which is quite a handful of selection, and it was growing at a decent rate considering it's only a 15 watt. You know, it's not even that good of a light. And this tank, I mean, it's an all-in-one. So you got rear sump, you got the light, the lid, all these kind of little features with it, and it's only like £130. It's really cheap for it's a good little budget tank. It's really good, good quality built. So I would really recommend this for beginners. I did recommend it for myself when I was a beginner. This was it was a great little tank, and yeah, all that white flaky stuff at the back, all that is coralline algae, that, and this is all that I could scrape off that I can put into the new tank. I didn't really have any issues with it, like disasters with the tank. No crashes or algae problems. I got really lucky at first. Was at first you usually expect some kind of situation to happen, some kind of minor tank crash at the start, you know, algae explosion, something like that at the start. But it was completely clean. No diatoms, no bubble algae, no aptasia, just completely clean. I don't know why, but I mean, I ain't complaining. It was great. I kind of needed that for a beginner. Wasn't really looking forward to any problems. So yeah, I kind of just only just got away with that. The only problem I did have really at the start was the filtration. It took me about a month or so. I was fiddling about with it so many times. I was changing it and all that kind of stuff. And well, I'm just going to show you the filtration right now. So here it is. It's a 3-chamber filtration. I was thinking how to modify this in a way. So the water would come over here. It'd go down here where you're supposed to have a protein skimmer. By the way, the Fluval PS2 protein skimmer is the loudest thing. It's like a lawnmower. It's so loud. I ditched it like 2 months in, because it was so loud. You couldn't tell the difference between the skimmer and the builder men outside. It was so crazy. It wasn't really taking anything out. I didn't really need a skimmer on this kind of size tank. It was only a 52 litre thing. Well, once you got sand and rock in there, you're looking at about 45 litres. which isn't much capacity. So what I just decided to do is do 50% water change once a week, 20 litres out, 20 litres back in once a week, and that kept my alkalinity, calcium, magnesium right where they should be, well, quite high actually, about the 10-11 mark. And the nitrate was running at about in between 1 and 2, well, maybe lower than that, like 0.5. It was running really low, and that was without the skimmer. I didn't even need the skimmer. So I still got it stock. I don't know why, because it's completely useless. But yeah, so what I did is I got a little bit of a plastic, thin piece of, well, plastic, and I just slot it in there. So I covered up about about 6 of these gaps that are in here. So it went all the way back. I had like 3 or 4 gaps all up here. So the water would go down. All right, it hit a filter floss pad, which is a small piece of like kind of cotton. Actually, no, I'll show you. It's this stuff here, so it goes straight on top of there. So this traps everything. There's some really good stuff, that. And then underneath that would be a sponge to double check nothing actually gets onto it. And then underneath that was just packed full of Biohome Ultimate Marine, which is a really good biological source that I use. And in here was also packed with biological media as well. So half a chamber here and a full chamber full of biological media. I had just under a kilo of that in here, which was, well, a little bit more than enough, but that's what you want. And yeah, and then in here was my pump, my heater, and I kind of went on and off carbon and Roaphos. Sometimes I had it, sometimes I was, I don't really need it. It helped a little bit, carbon. Roaphos helped with the little bit of yellow tint in the water, but during the last 4 or 5 months, I wasn't running any chemical filtration at all. And there is these media baskets you can buy from like In Tank or something. There are many American sites that you can only get them on. So I had to, I found them on Charterhouse, which is a good online shopping place. There'll be a link in the description to that, where I could get them. And I did dive into them, but they were like, you'd spend about 50 quid on like 2 of them. One goes in here, one goes in here. The setup of all of it, that was all bad as well. I wasn't really a fan of that. So I did my own modification. I didn't copy anyone's YouTube videos, or I didn't Google it or anything. I just did my own custom thing, and I had some great success with it. So I have my mechanical up here, biological, and on and off chemical. Ideally, you don't need to run a chemical. It's just that extra boost if you're struggling with the clean, like how clear your water is. If you think it's a little bit misty or a little bit yellow tint, you can add some carbon, Roaphos, or anything like that. So I wasn't actually running any machinery, as you might say, on this tank. There was no doser, there was no reactor, there was no skimmer. The only thing kind of machinery was obviously the return pump, heater, and wave pump, which is what you need. But the stuff that, reactors, skimmers, all that kind of stuff, I wasn't running anything like that. It was really basically run. And yeah, the pump, the stock pump that comes with this, it's a good pump. It's Fluval pump. Are pretty good. They're not too loud. I didn't even run it once. In fact, I did upgrade it straight away, only because I went for the Eheim one, the Eheim Compact 600, which was a little bit more power, 600 litres an hour instead of 500, so get a little bit more flow in the tank. And I wanted to go for the Jecod titanium heat bar and the D&D digital controller. So that heat bar, it goes all the way down, and it goes to like here, really low in the into the 3rd chamber. And the Fluval, well, the stock pump took up like this whole gap, so I couldn't actually, it wouldn't fit in there. So the Eheim, compact pumps are really small. It was like only took up this much, so it could slot down in there as well. They didn't vibrate against each other. I got nothing with that. There were no issues. And yeah, it was a really dead silent pump. The Eheim are pretty good for quiet pumps and that kind of stuff. And what I did notice, which was a little strange, I never really understood it until a few months ago. I kind of thought about it. This little hole in there, it's see it through this side. Yeah, that little hole in there. That is, I don't exactly know what it did much. I think it was just to help with the water balance in the rear filter, and the display would kind of show a similar kind of height. I blocked that initially, but it kind of came free by itself. There was a tiny little hole, so water was leaking through. But the stock filtration that came with this tank was like a little sponge, yeah. It was just a sponge thing, and then there was some bad biological media and chemical, absolutely useless that was. But I mean, it's cheap tank. You wouldn't, 130 quid. You wouldn't expect some, anything really pro. So yeah, the water that come in there would hit the sponge directly, so it wouldn't just be skipping any filtration there. So that hole, ideally, it depends what kind of filter you're running. If you're running stock filter, if you've modified it in a way. But yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, I blocked it up. Or I tried to anyway. I just put a little bit of plastic over it and I silicone that in. But it was still leaking. There was still a tiny little hole, but it didn't really make any difference really. And eventually, it just came free by itself. I don't know how. I think a rock just kind of tumbled and pushed it off. So that hole was open for quite a few months. It does make a difference. Have it open, have it closed. Won't make a ton of difference, but yeah, if it was me, I'd have it closed. And there is also a little piece of, it's like a surface skimmer that kind of goes on top of there. Actually, I'm going to try and find it. This little piece, and it's sitting there. Yeah, so it would kind of suck in water more. So so that little film that you get in early tanks, it's like a little bit of a grey kind of scum that you get a little thin layer at the top of the tank. That will also slightly affect the amount of light penetration you get through. So ideally you want that really sharp and clean. So that's why a skimmer can help with that as well. So this will kind of help with suck that down. But what it also does is it rises the water level in the tank by like a lot. Too much, saying that you get so much salt creep around the rim. I got loads of salt creep with that on. I was running it for a couple of weeks, but the amount of salt creep was literally starting to drip down and escape. I was honestly thinking this salt level would actually decrease in the tank. Because the amount of salt, it was creeping. It was horrible. So I took it out. This wasn't really doing much anyway, so that's kind of a useless piece in my opinion. So overall, the filtration, yeah, it's pretty good. For £130, you wouldn't expect a ton, but it's easy modifiable. I modified it in a way that was really, really efficient, and I got some great results from it. So it's easy to modify. If you want to run stock, you can. If you could just run in the tank with your basic soft corals, 2 fish, and all that. Low bioload, you can use stock. I know a few people who have actually used stock filtration and had okay success, but if you're looking to keep some LPS, some SPS, maybe 3 to 4 fish maximum, 4 small fish in this tank maximum, depending on what kind of skimmer, if you're running one, depending on your filtration. Yeah, it's pretty good. So yeah, so for £130 budget for beginners, this is absolutely perfect. You couldn't get a better tank really. The light, yeah, it's a little bit shorted on power, but it can do soft LPS and a lot of the lower light SPS. Obviously not aquaporas and stylo and all that kind of stuff, but it can do digis, montes, hystrix, all the kind of lower light SPS. I did have some great success. My red digitite went absolutely crazy in this tank. So if you're a beginner looking to set up a nice little nano tank, I'd really recommend you go for this guy. Really cheap. You can find them anywhere, any country, and you don't need to spend a ton of money on some equipment like I didn't spend a ton. Actually I did do a costing video. If you look back at my videos, I did do a costing video on this tank, how much the whole thing cost, including equipment, livestock, all that kind of stuff. I think it was a little under £1,000, but I kind of went a little bit OP towards the end. I put loads of coral in there. But you could do a budget. You could spend, you could do it in under 400, 300 maybe with livestock, like complete a tank with 300 quid. You could. So it's a good budget tank. If you're looking to set one up, I really would recommend you do that. So I think I'll leave that video here, just a basic, quick video, because I wasn't really too short to do a video on this week. I do have plans next week for video on my dad's tank, and I was going to do it like 2 weeks ago, but I didn't really get around to it. But now it's ready to be uploaded, so I'll get that up hopefully within the next, well, 5 to 7 days hopefully, and then after that will be a big update on my current reef tank, 30 gallon reef tank. So we've got some new livestock, some new equipment, all that kind of stuff. So I'll see you, well, you see my dad's tank next week. Bye.